Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I wanted to start off by also thanking you for requesting IFO to do this report, as well as Secretary Wetzel for in being a leader in embracing outcome-based measurements. For the members and edification, I'm just going to be asking a few questions from the performance measurements that were done by the IFO. Understanding this is an appropriations hearing, and this is something that we've talked about doing as far as challenging the paradigms of how we do the budgeting process. This is essentially what we've been talking about, and you've heard me ask several questions of several secretaries about outcome-based measurements. So if you would just play along with me, Secretary Wetzel. If we'll just kind of rip through this a little bit, I'll ask a couple questions, and you can give me a couple answers, and we'll see how it goes. And just as an example of what can actually happen when members are provided with the tools necessary to ask the right questions.
Okay, and Dr. Buckland may jump in. He did most of that.
That's fine. Whoever wants to answer is good.
Okay.
So we'll just start out on page 1 of the report where it talks about Department of Corrections. And if I was going through this, my first thing I would look at, it's the thing that jumps off of me is when you get to the bottom of the page where it says number of staff and number of inmates. And the staffing rate seems to be relatively flat, consistent over a period of time, while the amount of inmates has dropped a little bit, not significantly, but dropped a little bit. And my question would be something along the lines of, with the closing of prisons, SCI Greensburg, SCI Crescent, why the numbers are what they are? Why isn't there a reduction in staff?
Yeah, I think if you look at the 12, 13, and 13, 14 is also the same time where the Department of Justice began their investigation on the treatment of mentally ill individuals in our system, as well as the Disability Rights Network sued us. And the lawsuit, the outcome of the lawsuit was increasing the amount of out-of-cell time for seriously mentally ill individuals who are getting in trouble, who are violent. And that required more staffing. So I think the short answer would be that the requirements and the needs and the risk of the inmate population increased at the same time population was decreasing.
Okay. And going through to the next page, there's a listing of inputs. It's essentially appropriated costs, and it's broken out either by category or by program. And as I look through that page, I see that our costs have been growing by amounts that are far greater than inflation. You can also see on there where you had your overtime issues back in 14-15, where there was an explosion of costs there. But mostly what I notice is the cost drivers, pension contributions being the biggest cost driver of your growth. The next page also goes into cost per inmate, and it shows our cost per inmate that has just been growing pretty steadily over the years. So with that information, I would ask, how do we reverse this trend, or what are we doing to stem it at least?
Yeah, well, overtime in particular, we've worked hard, and you'll see that's trending back down. Again, there was a hiring freeze in I believe it was 2014, that for the first time covered correctional officers, which are relief positions, and that ended up costing us a bunch of money. So we're recovering from that. As for the pension costs, one of the things is newer employees, their pension contribution is lower. So I think we're at the peak for that, but I'm not a pension expert by any stretch.
Okay. And further into the report, there's additional information and shows you a breakdown of what may be driving your cost drivers, your biggest cost drivers, as well as comparisons to the other states and some historical data. And I find it kind of ironic as you go through that information as well as the information on overtime, that all the stuff that's included in here is pretty much what's in the McKinsey report, is it not?
I think there's a lot of crossover, yeah.
And it's a lot cheaper to do this than spend the $1.8 million on a McKinsey report, I believe also.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much this costs.
I can guarantee
I'll defer to you on that.
Significantly less. Also, I believe you guys are both on PCCD, is that correct?
Yeah, I am.
They are also undertaking a similar type of study. They are using Pew Charitable Trust Results First initiative. And I know we've talked about that a little bit in the past, and I know they're rolling that out with PCCD. Can you give a brief comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, we started, I think 2012 or 13 is when we did the first performance contract of halfway houses in the country. Since then, we've done the first performance contract, a medical contract, and mental health contract. We're 100% on board. We think that this is how government's supposed to work, data-driven, setting goals, baselining, and measuring data, and when things aren't working, adjusting. So,
And I thank you. And just real quickly for the members, the only difference, this is performance-based budgeting. Results First initiative, which Secretary Wetzel just mentioned, essentially will list all the various programs that corrections has and probation has, and essentially give a return on investment so he can evaluate and make decisions to help stem the tide of what we have cost drivers there. Thank you.